All right, it is 7 p.m. on Thursday, June 11th, 2026, and this is the Board of Finance Budget Committee special meeting, organizational meeting. I'm Bob Ellwanger, and together with Amy Ruggiero and Kevin Stark, the three Board of Finance members who are on the committee, we welcome you and thank you for joining us. Joining us also are members of the Finance Department, as well as the Board of Education and the RTM. Before we get into tonight's business, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So our first order of business is to consider and elect officer for the committee for 2026, and I'd like to put in nomination Amy Ruggiero as the chair of this committee. Do I have a second?
I guess I'm the only one to second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, 2-0. Amy, it's yours. I'll take some notes if you don't mind for during the meeting, but the meeting is yours.
Oh, okay. Do we do a vice chair or a secretary?
I don't. If you want to do a secretary, I'll take that on. So if you want to put that in nomination, I'll second it for the record.
So I'd like to make a motion to elect Bob. I don't know if that's your last name.
Ellwanger.
Ellwanger. Bob Ellwanger as secretary for the budget committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So moving on to item 4, to hear, consider, and approve a 2026 meeting schedule. Any ideas?
It might not be a bad idea to schedule one. If we don't need it, we can cancel it. But I'm thinking that whatever, obviously we're non-voting as a committee. We will be discussion-oriented and come up with some recommendations that will then report to the Board of Finance. And I'm guessing if there's anything structural or significant that impacts the process, the budget process, that I get a sense if you want to start maybe even sooner than we've done in the past, then probably should shoot to get to be on the agenda for the September Board of Finance meeting, especially if we're looking at any changes that may impact the charter and or need RTM approval. So with that in mind, I'm thinking maybe we meet once over the next 4 weeks or so, but it depends on your availability.
Because we had asked people to provide feedback, and
right.
I think it would be helpful if we give them, people definitely want to give some feedback, so I think if we send them a message, the rest of the Board of Finance, and say that we're having a meeting,
right.
At the end of July, then, or mid-July, then, if you could send us, you have 4 weeks, put some thoughts together, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so 4 weeks. From, let's say, 1, 2, 3, that would be the 9th. I will be away.
Could we go this, you want
the 8th?
16th? I think we're away the week. I could do the 8th if you want.
You could do the week, okay. All right, why don't we plan on meeting July 8th. I'll coordinate with Jen Carpenter to let her know. And again, if we're done before then, we don't need to meet, we can always cancel it. But
okay, so for July 8th.
7 p.m.
That's perfect here. And then I think that, do you want to send a communication to, or let me know, how do we do that with, sending a communication that we did have our meeting?
Oh, you can send an email to the rest of the board once we're done today and let them know what our thinking is. That'd be great. And encourage them to give us their input.
I will send a message tomorrow and let them know when our next meeting is scheduled for, and ask if they could please provide feedback prior to that date.
All right, sounds good.
Number 5, review and discuss current budget process and potential improvements to that process.
You want to start with your suggestions? It's for the public. It has been posted. It's on the town website as backup. It's a one-pager submitted by Ben and Tom Harris of our finance department. Do you want to kind of, maybe as a discussion started, take us through your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, basically, one of the concerns I have about the process was we had some errors in the book itself. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that the timing of compiling information was kind of compressed. So I think it's important that we get the planning, sort of get the process going much sooner. And the plan here is to get the planning done in September and get the process really fully moving forward by not later than early November. And I think that gives us time to get information out, work with departments, get information in, and review it. And that's the goal, because that really didn't happen last year. Everything kind of came together at the last minute, and we don't want to.
Do you normally start in December? This is my first year.
Well, this is the start of our, when I came on board last year
Right.
in January.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that we've all gone through the cycle together. So I think ideally, it should start a lot sooner. And I think that, we want to do the planning, start planning in August, in September, get the planning wrapped up in September, begin the process with the departments in October or November. And the reviews done, we really didn't begin the department reviews, I think, until January. So we really need to begin that a lot sooner.
And that takes weeks.
Yeah.
Clearly.
And things just came together the last minute. And we need to have time to get information back, send it back to departments to review, because that didn't happen, to confirm that we have.
That didn't happen.
Is correct. So.
Yeah, as it is, we're asking department heads to plan 18 months out, and now we're saying 19, maybe 20, start 20 months out, to begin planning. That sounds like an awful lot of things can happen in that.
Yeah, you can change them, and if the things that happen, I would think shouldn't be major. I mean, as you go through the planning process, you hopefully will anticipate, what you think the major things are gonna be, and you have time to change. You can change it.
Because they have 4 months?
3 years, a 3-year outlook.
Yeah, we need to that's the other thing, we wanna begin, we did have a meeting with the rating agencies last week, and the question is, well, do you have a 5-year plan? And we want to kind of build that into the process too.
Did you say GE?
Most corporations do multi-year.
Sure.
3 years, 5 years,
right.
they'll have a, big.
Utilities do 10 years.
Yeah, what's that for?
Utility companies.
Well,
Right, and the further out you go, the more leniency you're given for not being right on time.
At some point, it's a real yes.
it's really just to anticipate and, to get things going. This is very different in the sense that our revenue is generally based on taxes and, the mix of the residential versus commercial. But in a corporation, it would be more of like strategic planning on, different revenue streams, product development, different initiatives from the company. So it's very different than this. This is even, I think, easier because you can generally anticipate, or at least somewhat anticipate things that, like different initiatives that you're gonna have, an election year, for a select person, the costs are a little higher, different things. But there's always things that happen in a budget.
Well, an example that might support the extra year is the police department had signed a contract for it's their drone technology, their video technology, $640,000 in this year's budget. But it's also $640 each of the next 4 years.
For several years.
Yeah, so it basically by having an extra year or two or whatever at least available, it telegraphs. And I don't know how much work that is, but it does telegraph.
Well, from an expense perspective, I think it's very straightforward. You know what the union contracts are, and that's a large component of the personnel cost.
Right.
Social Security comes right off of that, you know what that is. So doing that, I think the only hiccup is when you're looking at some revenue streams like building. You don't really know what the economy is going to be doing, what interest rates. So you make some assumptions there. Do you keep it flat? Do you raise it? But I think for the most part, doing a 3-year projection when it comes to expenses, that's pretty much well known. You've got service agreements that are going to renew. So
And it's contractual, to your point. It's very simple thing to do.
Sure.
And
then
the
what
retail
about-
isn't gonna happen again for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Now, when does that mix between the commercial and residential, that also is every 5 years, correct?
Mhm.
So, I mean, if you were to start earlier, but there's not gonna be any big shifts with that. The only caveat I think you may have is because the folks that had challenged their reval were so successful and 77% of people
You could have more.
got what they wanted. I mean, if I'm sitting there thinking about challenging it, I'm certainly gonna take that chance, and I think that there's gonna be just from what I'm seeing, you could see that there'll be a lot of people that might do that, and that could change your revenue, like we saw. with
But you
the-
make assumptions, make your best guess at a point in time, and.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Could we also, I guess a couple of thoughts. It seems to be oftentimes we're like pulling teeth for information. Every department describes itself and its mission and its objectives a little differently. Nothing's templated in the budget book in terms of that front page.
The narrative?
The narrative.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
there was
And
stems out of some of that.
so if we could look to standardize it, maybe coming up with at least some essential must-haves. You must include, the mission. How do the work you do benefit taxpayers? How does it benefit the town? How do you quantify your results? Just so that it's real clear and right up front. And also, if there was a better way to identify non-recurring and parse those out, the one-time the expenses, expectations that are hidden in the budget that we have to ferret out sometimes. We can't always tell unless we see a big variance in the projected budget for the following year versus the current year. That might indicate there's a one-time charge, but we don't know for sure. So I was wondering if there's a better way or more consistent way to identify recurring versus non-recurring.
I think to that point, similar to what is done with the capital ideas.
Mhm.
There's usually a line item that says, this is what my capital is used for. You can have a similar section. These are my large one-time non-recurring costs.
Yeah, and not every department has.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
There's certainly some easy wins that we saw, or that were a little more painful, comments that got a little monotonous during the meetings where, for example, org charts for each group. I mean, just do them.
No.
I mean, I don't know why this becomes like a conversation event. I mean, it's not that hard, and that's an easy ask, and I don't think, Jim asks every single
Yeah,
person,
yeah.
and it gets a little bit redundant, but why are they not done?
Yeah, well, so we could do a org chart, show head count by department. For instance, we just did the orphan circle. We have it all in the orphan circle.
Mhm.
So,
You do, there is an org chart.
Yeah, well,
I stumbled across it.
there's one in there, and,
But by,
not, the one that's.
it's the overview, it's
It's an overview.
reporting
Townwide
relationship,
We
townwide.
can do something that's more granular.
I thought I saw something department by department, I don't have it with me, but I know it.
Some departments brought them in, some departments.
Okay.
There is one in the police department,
Yeah,
their site.
Yeah.
so more consistency there.
But
I think it should be very, I mean, it
No,
should
that's
be
an
a
easy,
low
that's an
win
easy, that's an easy thing.
to show that you're hearing and taking the feedback and responding. The other thing is, certainly put the page numbers on everything.
Yep, I agree.
That's an easy
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, here it is, Town of
And then,
Fairfield, organizational, this is everything.
Patches.
Where is this on? I got this
I have
somewhere.
an account,
Yeah.
And it's every department.
Well, you know,
yeah. I started my career.
I created
yeah,
that.
patches.
You did, you created this,
And then, what I
Pretty
would
helpful.
also say is,
but I don't know where it lives.
I'm gonna ask every single time, and I did ask, I like to look at I spent 7 years doing budgeting, so, I wanna look at run rate.
Yep.
So, you're gonna base your estimate on, knowns, what you know,
Correct.
contractual things like that, history, certain bumps that that are gonna pop up, and then, go to run rate and take a look and say, where are we at for 7 months? What's the actual? What does it come out to monthly? What special things are we anticipating for next year that is not in this run rate that we can just use that? So if you can have the run rate, and it was very hard when we were looking at it
Mm.
to scramble between the pages, and you got the revenue up here and the expenses, and I'm like, I'm working every single one part to have them ready.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna go with that, and I know, Bob, you and I
Right, yeah, we
were
were-
on making
yeah.
a lot of the assumptions based on that, you and I were like right there
Yeah.
with that. But, if you know, like, when we're going in for a night, you know what's on the agenda, have those pages ready to go and hand out
Mm.
with the page numbers and say, here's where we are for the 7 months of the year, I think that would be extraordinarily helpful.
Okay.
If you're basing an estimate on run rate, I would be ready to articulate the methodology that was utilized and show and justify why and how you came up with that number. Across the board, I mean, when we have our people, our department heads come in, and I do have so much respect for them, they're they're terrific employees and very dedicated, and some of them have been here for so many years.
Mhm.
And they know their business, they're in that position for a reason. The standard form will be helpful, and then have them be ready to explain, like, if, we're gonna have headcount increases. Maybe jump out at the beginning when we first talk about the budget, and Christine, or whoever the first one person is, because there's an election coming.
Mhm.
Not this year, next year. Hi.
Hi,
Is this open to the public?
Yes,
absolutely.
come on in,
Come on in, have a seat,
anywhere you want.
anywhere you'd like, welcome.
And, I would have, some key talking points on headcount additions for sure,
Mhm.
and open positions, those come up nonstop. So I'd wanna have something on open positions.
Yeah.
And, if there's any positions that have been eliminated and potentially reallocated for a new position.
So if it's not in the budget book, the department head should bring that information.
Well, I think it should be in the budget book for sure.
Yeah, but if for
by
some
the
reason
individual.
it's a recent opening or something,
But,
or,
correct,
Yeah.
exactly, but certainly have some high talking points on
What
what you're gonna
summarize
talk
it
about.
up front when,
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then
headcount
do what I do
is a
with
big
it.
driver, I
Yeah,
mean,
but,
Sure.
when you look at the revenue, we know it's gonna be the taxes. When we look at the, expenses, obviously, a portion of it, 70% almost is the Board of Ed, but even that, so much of it is
Yeah.
employee costs.
Yeah.
It's something to look at. I know when she did the presentation this year, she did focus on the fact that except for the GIS, there were no headcount changes. So that's something we can certainly address,
Mhm.
both in her presentation and in the book itself.
Well, yes, there was one, that was a true new position. And then there was all the controversy around the hiring a CEO, or COO.
Zero.
COO, and that was not a new position, but it's been an open position for so long, and could we live without it to save money? But then it was also in the charter, and, I do think that is probably, overwhelming to just have her.
But, I'm in support of that. So I was at the meeting when that was, at least one of your meetings when that was debated. And I was sitting there listening to the discussion about why the COO was needed, the support for it. And it was all verbal, it was qualitative, there were, I wanted to jump up and I couldn't, it wasn't my position, but I wanted to jump up and say, well, what's not happening now that the COO is not filled? Where are you losing ground? What's happening? And so, to your point about an open position, it makes a lot of sense for somebody to say, okay, well, here's the job description, here's why we need the person.
Yeah, put it on a piece of paper with those.
Yeah.
You have to be able to anticipate what you're gonna be asked.
Yeah.
So line by line, I would be looking at a budget, and when I'm putting together a budget, I'm looking and saying, all right, I'm taking a driver here, I got a 20% increase, maybe here I'm supposed to be flat, why do I need this money? How can I justify it? Where can I offset it? Have all the reasons ready to answer the questions. I know Jim's gonna be looking for this. I know, Craig's gonna want that, when it comes to paving or golf, that's his hot button.
Right.
So I would be anticipating the need and the questions before I walk in with anybody. So there's just a few
Yeah.
things.
I think too, it would be helpful, we often ask questions about the debt service fund or the outside jobs fund. What are the various fund balances? And if that could be, either, I don't think it's in the budget book, but,
It's not in the book, it's normally,
normally it's a,
stuff.
yeah.
Debt service is in the budget book.
Well, the debt,
Well, the
it's
methodology.
not the debt service is there, not the debt fund.
Not the debt fund. Because, oftentimes we are wanting to find ways to fund various expenses, and obviously the outside jobs fund being a big one, and that will be a discussion we always have when it comes to police vehicles, right? I did like how Board of Ed has been using the Google Doc to gather questions, and I do appreciate your workaround this year on the Q&A. That was a little kludgy, but it was better than, I found it helpful.
The way this came about is, I guess, 2 years ago, we had a meeting with you, Kevin, and Jim Myers, and someone expressed the preference to do something different.
Were we using Google Docs back
You
then?
think you were?
No, Kevin actually was the one.
Kevin
that-
preferred to do something different. So
He
that-
wanted to do something different.
Right.
Okay.
He wanted to move away from it.
For what reason? I'm just curious. I
You want
could
something more
follow the
direct?
Board of Ed's Google Docs.
I really didn't, I don't know exactly why he wanted to move away. I just think that he wasn't very fond of the way, because it was a little disjointed with I do think you can go to the Google Doc and, you could, it had the reference on the page and people could go there and see if somebody's already asked a question or
Right.
reasons that sounded like a valid thing. But, I just felt like maybe he didn't think it was as interactive.
So maybe, Jen, you could get some commentary here. How effective is it for you on the Board of Ed side? How easy or difficult is it to manage? How cumbersome is it to complete?
I love it. We used to just email all of our questions in and get these huge documents back. They were redundant, and it was a lot of work for staff. We organized it by agenda item, so that this way it's when we discuss these set of pages and the support pages, when we're on that topic, then we're all on that literal page of the document, and that we have the questions with the page number, the answer, a space for a follow-up question, and a follow-up answer. So we're also on the sheet, sometimes interacting with each other's questions. Well,
Yeah.
I agree with what Judge Jacobson just asked, but can you also tell me this? And it's just,
So that'll be your agenda almost for a part of your discussion. I mean, you'll go through that.
well, in theory, if it is used well by the board members, and that is where you have varying success, is that if you can trust the answer,
Yeah.
we shouldn't then have to repeat the question and the answer at the board table. So it does a great job of signaling staff, be prepared for this, get us this answer. And what we have fairly good success, I would love it to improve even more, is make sure everyone has read it before the meeting coming in, so that you then don't repeat the same question, which is where you waste time when instead it could be on follow-up. But overall, it's taken us years to get to the version we used the past 2 years, where it's, because the way our budget book is organized, it'll be, here's the major categories, but then deeper into the book are all of the support pages broken out by school or by department.
So we would do it by department.
And
Right.
it works really well and is a tremendous guide to our conversation.
I think it'd be important, the year that we had it was my first year on the board of finance. And I didn't put a single question in it. And I'll be honest with you, there was a couple of reasons why. First of all, I wasn't sure. There was a lot of questions in there. It was my first time going through it. I don't want to be the newbie holding down slowing up the meetings, et cetera. But I think it's very important to have the document with us at the meeting. And I think one of only 2 people that aren't bringing a laptop to stick in front of my face right now.
Right.
But I feel like I need to have a laptop if you're gonna do it, or at least have it on the screen so that you can refer to it, because, I'm not sitting there with a laptop in my face. And then the other reason is, I think it is very important for some of the discussion to take place amongst all the members for the public.
Right.
Because if people aren't paying attention, and I'm gonna be honest with you, and I know in the last meeting, I was pretty vocal about facts about like the tickets and the assessments and the 2 things that are very hot, big topics in the town right now. before I got involved in local politics,
Mhm.
I was one of these people that were not paying attention either. So I'm not making fun or criticizing anybody. I was raising 2 kids as a single mom and working, 15-hour days. I did not have time to pay attention to local politics, even though it impacted, my P&L personally. So, I do think that you do wanna have some open conversation where people can at least hear, or if it's a really hot topic, the press can pick it up, and the public at least has an opportunity to know, but who is going to go in the public when you're managing your day-to-day life and working and everything else to even afford to live in this town, and read that Google Doc?
Right.
Who has the time?
And in addition to that, if you're sitting in one of the meetings and a discussion topic comes up, even if there are Google Doc inputs on that, so you have to remember, you have to be able to say, okay, we're talking about this, did I read the answers in Google Docs? Do I need to get something there to relate to the discussion? That connection can be kind of difficult in real time.
Yeah. Well, it's a little cumbersome, like you're saying, like juggling back. I don't bring my laptop, because honestly, if I'm in the meeting, I wanna be in the meeting.
Sure.
And if I have my laptop, I'm gonna see pings popping up on my work email, getting stressed, I'm gonna be distracted. I don't wanna do that. Sometimes I'll look at my phone like just before, but I know you sent out, I was just checking to see if this was the same backup, but I don't,
We have
We
hard
should have
copies,
it
we
at
have hard
least
copies at the table.
of the Google Doc.
Yeah.
See, that would be helpful.
That would be helpful.
The big piece of paper, hard copy.
Okay, so that to me
Yeah.
would be a lot more helpful, but I do think that you need to have some sort of dialogue, or at least to reiterate the questions that were asked and how they were addressed, and are we comfortable with them, so that it gets on public record.
Yes.
Even though the Google Doc is available, it just isn't gonna be looked at, in my opinion.
I think
So-
that this may be one of the outcomes of our committee, is that to suggest that we go back to Google Docs.
I'm indifferent.
Well, I think it
As
sounded like,
long as you can support it,
it sounded like that was certainly something that people, when Craig, I think Craig.
At
brought it
the
up
last meeting,
At the
right.
last meeting.
And Lori preferred it too.
Well, Lori said she had started it for the Board of Ed, way back when, that was her
Oh.
to fame.
But I've never used it, so I don't.
You said Lori?
Lori.
Oh, I meant Christine had started it for the Board of Ed.
Christine, but Lori always preferred it, even last year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Was there,
I will say that, just like you said, sometimes there are big topics that even if we have the answer there,
Yeah.
we're still
Yeah.
gonna start the
You're
conversation.
talking about Dwight School, I mean, you're gonna talk
Right,
about.
but
lots
the
of
thing that,
topics.
hey, why did this go up $5,000? Okay, we don't need to, we had almost 300 questions in that Google Doc. We don't then go back and
Reiterate every single thing.
reiterate everyone, it's supposed to be for follow-up,
Can you
so.
sort those by topic?
Well,
do you
they're,
have
they're,
that?
they're organized by agenda, which is by topic. So revenue will be a page in the Google
Gotcha.
Doc. It'll be
Gotcha.
instructional services, support services, so it's organized in that
Because
way.
it's not only the Google Docs or the paper, but how you integrate it to the discussion.
Yeah.
So I like the idea you've got it out on paper, because you could almost take any topic and say, okay, we're debating this, but let's go look at what was in Google Docs already that we've got some answers for. It's a good way of integrating it into the topic.
Organizing it by the agenda is what's,
Yeah, that would be.
that was my baby. And it took me 5 years to hammer in
You
what
got
I
it there.
meant by that, but it's there now, and it's just,
difficult.
oh, it's just so much more workable.
And having it printed, to me, is critical.
Yeah,
Because
me too.
I agree
I
with
don't
that.
wanna have to bring my laptop, quite frankly.
Right.
It'll be a major distractor,
Mhm.
so I wanted to maybe, talk about the budget book, and, you've had this format for years, where it's a 3-year look back, current year, and then the proposed year, right?
Yes.
Would you suggest any changes to that? I don't know, I'd hardly ever look at 3 years past.
I've got some examples if you wanna.
Yeah, but, maybe, I don't wanna, shortchange, were there other
No, I
suggestions,
kind
or?
of summarize what we have here.
Okay. So maybe if you could, put a little bit more specific, because I like all these, ideas. I think we would put these in the hopper, certainly,
Okay.
from my perspective, and bring them to the attention of the bigger, board. Maybe a little more specificity in terms of dates,
We're gonna do, we will do a calendar.
Like a calendar.
We're gonna do a calendar.
That would be-
All of this on there.
that would be great. Yeah, so let's pivot, Doug, and thank you for preparing what you prepared, for the public. It is, in the backup online. And is
And
there,
is this
is,
in the backup though, 'cause I just.
Yeah.
it should be, yes, and if you could provide, a copy?
I have
Sure.
a couple more copies, if anyone has, eye strain problems like I do, I've got bigger print.
I put my glasses on and I realized I was
Okay.
gonna suddenly be reading the agenda and I didn't want to be stepping up on the word.
Okay.
So thank you for preparing. Do you want to just take us through it?
Yes, sure. So, so I thought, first of all, let me tell you what, the different documents I've got here. We'll go through these, if that's okay, one
Mhm.
by one. But the goals, you know, it's important that, you know, if you don't know if you don't know your direction, your goal, any road will take you there. So, the thought here was to try to get more transparency, get the numbers out, the figures out there, you know, early, and the reasons for the figures, maybe provide some broader perspectives, so that's one of the documents I'll have here. And kind of like the Google Doc questions, don't wait for the questions, maybe the exhibits sort of get the answers out there to begin with, or at least point to different answers. So this, the first document, which says page 2 in the lower right, so this sort of, Bob, where you were getting for with the budget book.
Oh, right, yes. Mhm.
This might be a forest for the trees document that goes up front. I did this for the subcommittee, the RTM subcommittee
Mhm.
a couple months ago. And if you look across the top, it's 2021 all the way through 27. And importantly, 2026 is obviously a projection, but this might add to our discussion earlier. Do you want a second year of estimate, kind of what you were talking about, the GE methodology on that far right column. And then if you look at the left side, so I've got this split into major components. So the education budget, everything not in the education budget, and then the total down at the bottom.
Mhm.
And the idea here is to show not only what the numbers were, so if you look at the education budget line, it starts at 184.5 on the upper left. You have that number for each year going out to the current fiscal year, but you also have the change identified, percent change. So you're actually giving people a lot of attention to what's the context here, what's really happening, how good do we feel about the fiscal year 27. The non-education budget, same thing. And then there's a line that I thought might be useful, which is, see, it says actual results under the education budget and under the non-education town budget. And the idea is, you know, how good were we? How far off were we when we had a budget and then had the results come in? And I think that's kind of important when you go down to the very bottom where it says actual results, and it says for 2021, it says 321.2, and if you go all the way over to the right, the 2026 number is 380.8. Is this okay the way I'm doing it?
So now, I think though, are you including town shared expenses and also self-funding, WPCA,
Yes.
emergency
So,
center,
well,
response center? I would suggest you'd want to break those out separate from, unless they're all included in the town budget.
well, if you look at the 400.4,
Right,
that's the budget that was approved by the Board of Finance.
right, so it's all in, but I think it ought to be broken out, at least the self-funding, departments.
So you
If
could
not
take
the
this
shared
and make
expenses.
this a couple pages if you wanted to add those other things in, but what's really, I thought was interesting is you look at the far right column, the 7-year change percentage, and the education budget's going up by 33% over that time period, the town budget only 18%. Again, it's perspective, it's not necessarily saying this is right or wrong, that's what the discussion would be about. But this puts right out in front of you, here's what's happening with the key parts of our budget.
And it's a summary. What do you think, Tom?
I guess the question is, would adding the, additional years, is there value in that? If someone feels that, that could be. If it's just a summary, I think it's fine. In terms of pulling together more detail for the Board of Ed, the budgets kind of come together pretty much at the same time. So getting detail from the Board of Ed to get into the town budget
Right.
could be an issue. So that's just the timing thing, I think. Because, really they're kind of coming together at the same point in time. In fact, when we put the budget book together for the town, I don't know that the Board of Ed had approved the school budget.
We approved it at the end of January.
Okay, so, but it was pretty close in terms.
Pretty close,
Pretty
yeah,
close,
most,
yeah.
yeah.
So that's just a, question about timing.
Mhm.
What are the first two, so, I just wanna understand this chart a little better.
Okay, yep.
So for 2021 and 2022, were those what the budget book says, and then this is the actual down below, the 321? Or are these actuals? They don't have the actual underneath them.
Oh, sorry, yes, so the 20, sorry, that's my just.
01 and 02 are
I'm
actual.
not doing it well enough, so yes.
Yeah.
So the 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 are all actual.
They're actual, okay.
I managed to put actual under 23, 24, 25.
That's okay, I just wanted to clarify,
Yes.
sitting, if it was a different, if it was,
Yes.
okay, and then what it's showing us is the 317 across was the actual, except for the projection
Yes,
the last
except
year.
for the last.
But I'm sorry, these were with budgets, and then the actual where we landed for the full year is what's on that actual result,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
So for example, on 2021, the budget was 317.2, but we ended up at 321.6.
Yes, yes. And what was interesting is, I found it interesting, is if you look across this and marry those years up with who were the first select people, that, I don't know if this is a fair observation, but when you get to the 1.2 million better in 2025, that was a Bill Gerber budget year. And in the 2026, this is a projection, by the way, from 2 quarters, that 2026 projection column, because we obviously didn't have actual when we put this together.
Gotcha.
And if you take that projection, then this year would be 3.1 million better than budget.
So you might surmise that we're not really that good at budgeting.
It's
At
a very
the bottom
high
line.
level look, so there could
We
be
missed the mark.
things going on, did some federal program die in 2024, and that's why you're 9.2 million worse than budget. But from a point of view of continuous improvement, it's worth trying to analyze what's been going on. These numbers.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to take a lesson learned, kind of what drove where the differences lie, and how to anticipate that in the future.
Okay.
Okay.
The WPCA was just being in and out anyway, right?
Right.
I mean, so I think you do want to show it, but it's just a wash. You're still going to come down to the same number.
Yeah.
But it shows the breakdown.
The other thing that I thought.
Although they could be a driver of that variance, though.
Yeah.
They could be.
Sorry.
They could drive that, overage.
The other 2 numbers that I thought were pretty interesting, in my humble opinion, in the 2027 column, the percent of total town budget for education is 61%, and for the town itself is 39.1. Obviously, there's a second decimal missing, but just knowing that the town is always investing 60% of its budget in the education, I don't know, it seems to me that deserves some context. Either it's something we can leverage to say, holy cow, we devote 60% of our budget, Westport does 50 or 55. Seems to me there'd be some value to knowing that, and certainly knowing that over the years, we've been pretty consistent with that. If you look back over the prior year columns at that 61%, of the town budget. It seems to me there's some, either discussion or deserved there, not necessarily now, tonight, but in general, that's the kind of thing this broad look evokes.
Yeah, and I think that certainly the 60% is a well-known number in the town, and it's highly, shared publicly, articles, et cetera. I think comparing us to other, like a Westport, would be comparing apples and oranges, only because we have a very different structure here with 2 high schools. We have 11 elementary schools. We have actually 3 high schools, if you know, I mean, it's a very unique scenario where Westport has Staples. You know what I mean? So it is a very unique thing.
Yes.
So I think that this certainly shares the consistent trend of the percentage of the budget, which I think is helpful, but I think the comparative might, not add value. And I do think the Board of Ed, certainly when the superintendent comes to explain, and members of the Board of Ed come to explain, I think they certainly articulate the reason why. And obviously, I think the bread and butter of the price of our real estate is based on the performance of our schools.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? If that's what makes it such a desirable town, and even though, you have people that don't have kids in the school, they don't have kids, they pay to send their kids to private school, whatever the circumstance may be, you're still getting a bump up on your real estate valuation because of a good stuff, a solid school.
So 2 ways you could go with that. You could say, starting in 2021 when it's 58%, the town has continued to invest more and more in the education and recognize the value of that. And if for some reason in the next fiscal year, the 61 dropped to 58 or 59, you'd say, holy cow, what's going on here? And
Not
you have to.
Not likely.
I don't think that's gonna
Not likely, not likely.
Especially if it's in the contract.
Jen is smiling, it's not likely.
Yeah, okay.
I also think that when the
Thank you.
select person does a presentation, that allocation, that split is something that's not right. It's not in the book, but it's in the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. So, continued, Doug.
Do you want to go to the next page, page 3? So this is very speculative, this page. The concept is that very often we're making decisions based on financial data, like the data we had on the previous page. But could we use more non-financial data items to help us understand what the dollars are getting for us?
Yep.
So this page was just saying, okay, let's take these 5 years and show this. This, by the way, came out of, First Select Person had a page in the budget book that had these,
Page 1.
Page 1, was that it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there listening to this, and I said, this is good. In fact, it may have been
Didn't pass it, because
this one here. This is all great information, but because it's just one point in time, you don't see the trends. You don't know whether we're getting better or worse. If we're investing more money in a certain place, what are we getting for it? So the notion here was to develop a list, and this might be what you want some people to do in between this meeting and the next, if you like this, would be come up with a bunch of line items where you can get data that says, okay, in 22, we had 61, I'm just looking at the very top line of the population, but the population of the town was 60,000. Now it's 64,000. The increase is blah, 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 and that's why that supports some of the increase of the budget dollars that you were looking at on the previous page. It's a concept of, companies struggle with this. It's not easy to come up with. But it gives you some context for the dollar numbers.
Yes. So it's sort of a profile, it's a snapshot, which we do include partly in the bond issue, isn't
It's all- yeah,
that?
it's all in the
That's
bond.
there, and it's
There's details
also,
in the bond.
you can get it,
In the-
excerpted out of the, audited report. I mean,
This-
there's a lot of
that
good
year's stuff,
information.
There's a lot of stuff in
There's a lot of good stuff in here that, to your point, is informative and provides perspective. I don't know how you corral it into a nice one-page, easy to look at format.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a reference kind of
Well,
guide.
so to what you're saying there, the question that I've kept in mind as I've done this in other places is, if I had X piece of information, I can make Y decision. So the things that would be on here would be things where maybe it's you guys have decided that these data items support the spending here
Mhm.
directly.
Sure,
So to be able to make a direct tie-in between what's in your budget
yeah.
and what's been.
And we often get that. We get number, how many miles are paved, we get how many light
Yes,
posts we
yes.
have, how many hydrants. I mean, we do, that
Yeah.
is
It's
in the department overview,
department
it's in the narrative.
budget,
Yeah,
It's important, the waterfront,
Yeah,
that is like miles of,
It's in the department,
I think
DPW budget, yeah.
yeah, that, certainly DPW.
so the key here would be spending enough time with it before the budget book's put together to make it, to come up with the right items that are gonna help people understand why you're spending this money.
Does it make sense to have single-family home, condominium, and apartments?
Yes, yes, and, you could put the mill rate in here, or the total,
Mhm.
total commercial, total
yeah,
residential.
split between the two.
You could put town head count, year by year.
Yeah, it requires more study than I was able to give it in this
Right.
time period, and I'm not as knowledgeable as you guys, so I didn't know exactly what to put in there, but I can at least point out the concept
Mhm.
that this might be useful. Okay.
I do think on the employees, we will, provide them with the details on departmental employee headcount, town employees.
Town employees, yeah. And I guess they're union, whether, which union or non.
Yeah, and that's all in the
That-
bond offering too.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess the question would be, would it make sense for somebody, I'd be willing to help, but I don't have the knowledge, to go through the budget book and say, let's think about these data items and what should be on here, and think about whether that would help the next budget cycle.
Mhm.
Okay, page 4. Is this okay, my pace that I'm going here?
Yeah, yep.
You okay with that? Okay.
Okay, so here's, getting back to
To
my
what you were
question.
saying,
Yeah.
yes,
Of
initially
how we format the budget book
with Ben, right.
with
So
a 3-year look back.
this was the notion of, you can see the top lines, kind of like you've had year over year. I thought maybe it would be good to, in fact, list a column. If you look right in the middle of the page, it says second quarter, year to date, and then percent of budget. So to the point you were saying, what's the run rate? How are we doing? If you've got a line item that's all of a sudden 43% of the budget after half a year, you're ahead of the run rate.
Mm.
And then your budget should reflect at least a decision to either use that run rate or say, I don't believe the run rate and I'm gonna stick with my other number.
We probably print the budget book before second quarter is in the books,
Yes,
right?
or if it's.
Given the lead time,
Yeah, or it's really close at hand.
end of January, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're almost
Practical
coincident,
thing,
so
yeah.
yeah. And, I mean, you wouldn't want to delay putting the book out, so that's why we had the supplemental, run rate, that was
and one of the issues, if you're looking at second quarter expenses that are 43% ahead, there might be an encumbered, dollars, which would show as being spent in
Yes,
the quarter,
and you'd be way over in
and
that.
be way over, but it's because they've been encumbered but not yet spent.
yeah.
So you might have a slightly misleading statistic.
So a similar concept would be then, instead of putting it in the budget book because the timing doesn't work, just like you have your rundown with the Board of Finance after second quarter result, third quarter, maybe bring your second quarter results
Mm-hmm.
into the budget review meeting. So
Yeah, that gets to Amy's point about having the run rate,
Yeah,
available.
Yeah, as handouts.
Yeah.
Based on what we're gonna discuss.
Exactly.
The most recent data you wanna have.
and then the other two things on the far left side, I thought, can you break the budget line items into those that are discretionary and those that are non-discretionary? A lot of discussions come up over that, but there's always a mix in the budget
Mm-hmm.
book page. If you could find it, and once you do it and you make the decision, then they're there for year after year, and you know
Mm-hmm.
you've got them.
But you'd be rolling up a lot of
Yeah.
accounts, you know, a lot of accounts into these categories.
Well, actually,
And I think we like the break, we like to see every
Yes.
single budget
Well,
code.
I think you can-
know,
You can look at the budget book itself, and to your point, discretionary versus non-discretionary, basically everything from Social Security up is your
80% of the
personnel
budget
cost.
is non-discretionary.
And
Right.
so everything below that would be your discretionary.
yeah, so 52,000 and above, and below is, to
Yeah,
your point, and
52,000
53,000 and up
Yeah.
is not as discretionary, yeah.
So
Yeah.
the intent here, by the way, was not to roll the counts up. I just didn't have space on one page. My idea would be you take every single line item in the fire department budget and either put them in a
But could
group.
you do that, could you do a sub?
I don't know, because this is actually generated out of Crystal reports, so I have to figure out how to get Crystal to differentiate, these accounts are discretionary,
You
these are
have to tag
non-discretionary.
them one way or the other.
Somehow, and
I've
how,
worked with Crystal before.
I haven't played with it,
Yes.
this is my first time in about 20 years playing with
Yes.
Crystal reports.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So, I am
That's a
learning.
blast from the past, Crystal report.
Yes.
July.
Oh, shut
It's
it.
an SAP product.
It's an essay, yeah, oh,
It
shut
was Business Objects, but SAP bought them many years ago.
Many years ago.
The other thing on the far right side on the top, it says comments or cost assumptions. So earlier this evening, we were talking about maybe adding some commentary or something, and I don't know how you fit it in because
Yeah,
there's only so much
There's only
room
so
you
much
have
real
going
estate.
right to left.
yeah,
And the type on this page is bigger. And then again, you'd have down at the bottom the year-over-year change and the year-over-year percentage. So anyway, this is just, you know, as I went through the budget book and sort of my old experience popped into mind, some of these things, yeah, maybe this would help.
Just curious, isn't it a little bit misleading with non-discretionary, because that's assuming you keep the same number of bodies? And I say that as a Board of Ed member, where, you know, I know, we say this is what, this much is staff, that doesn't make it non-discretionary.
It is discretionary because you couldn't lay people off.
Correct.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing because I think a lot of these
Some
things, that's
fixed
over
versus
time.
variables.
Yeah, I mean, your employees are at-will employees, they can be let go, so.
Well, you have to make, and we had this discussion at Pequot when you joined the RTM meeting, and I laid out the same idea. So since then, I've thought about it, and I think you'd have to assume that, other than decisions to move people, that you put the same levels, you wouldn't call the staff discretionary. You'd sort of make an assumption that everybody that's in there is non-discretionary, unless you're making a decision, in fact, specifically.
To me, non-discretionary funds are generally contractual. Things where you have no, like, it's already money spent. You're starting a budget with something that you can't legally change per se.
yeah.
But, you know, you have.
It's almost off the table.
Like property
Yeah.
tax, things on buildings, you know, certain,
Yes.
you know, things like that, that are
Yes.
contractual to me or not.
Yes, and then the question becomes, is the effort you put into doing that split, you know, with Crystal, is that effort worth it?
Yeah.
You know, are you able to make better decisions because of that? I don't know, it's not, you know, maybe you try it with one department and see if it tells you anything, but, just the idea.
Yeah, because every department will be non-discretionary by their own definition.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Us too.
okay.
Paving.
Okay, so here's the debt service.
You did it.
So there, I have two debt service pages in here, maybe jump to page 6 first. Page 6 is a page that Craig put together for you guys.
Well, it's something we've always done.
Yes,
That's right, you guys,
Yeah, we do this.
yeah, you do this.
Yeah, we do this.
Mhm.
and in fact, in the budget book, page 203, you have a bunch of
That's
these.
that's the expense, the cost of that's the principal and interest payments on
Right,
the debt and bond.
Yes.
This is reserves.
Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's getting back to
That's
my
right.
point, that knowing this is very useful.
Well, the key that, the thing that made me want to make sure this gets highlighted, and again, Craig put this together, and we had a smaller, half the size version at the RTM, and Craig came and joined us, and he brought this version, which I think is terrific.
Mhm.
But what's really interesting is 2/3 of the way down the page where it says fiscal year 2027 usage, FSP budgeted release. This is when the first select person was saying, well, how much of this reserve can we use to put against our budget to reduce the impact of the 5-year, yeah. So this page provides some context around how much of that money you're willing to pull out of the reserve to support your annual budget.
Yeah.
And it gives you that context. So you come down to that box that says 23.28, you know, is that a number that lets you sleep okay at night, or is it better to suffer the increase in your budget and have that 3,000 be only 2 million?
But in terms of if you look at the 3 million, the 4 million, those are numbers that are actually in the budget.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's just a context.
Yeah.
It would be augmenting what you guys already do. And then again, it would just be a question of, does this help? So if we go back to the prior page, 5, I wish I could have described this better. Let me just tell you the thinking here, and you might quickly say, no, we already do this, but we have a capital spend plan.
Right.
That says, here's how much, here are the bond funding initiatives that we've done for the last several years. And based on those, here are the debt service requirements, the annual debt service requirements across all of those bonds. And over the years, those bonds get retired. But also over the years, based on your waterfall, you start adding bond issues that then increase your debt service costs. So the concept here was to make two basic sections. The upper part is bonds outstanding, so you look at, so if you look at the 2027 year, I think I got this number out of your budget.
I gave it to you, I think.
Oh, okay, yes.
Mhm.
So, and then you see, right, so it's 244 million, then underneath that, capitalized debt added. So this would be bond fundings that are happening
Right.
in the 2027 year, the
Next week.
44, the next week,
Next week,
okay.
yeah.
And then the 10 million was just an air fig, I grabbed out of the air to say, this is what you're retiring. So given what you're adding, what you're retiring, your net figure is 279.
You're very close, but you're high by 7 million.
Okay.
So we have 244 million now.
Mhm.
We're gonna pay off July 1st, 14 million. And then we're gonna add 46, so we're at 272 would be the number for.
Yes, so I didn't,
Yeah, you didn't know.
you're on top of it, I didn't know. So you do the same thing in 2028. Please ignore the numbers that says total town debt of 630 in the middle of the page. I screwed up a formula there.
So can I kind of just jump in on this?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
please.
so charter says now the Board of Finance, I think all the governing boards have to approve the capital plan. So
Mhm.
then the question is, are they approving 1 year of the 10-year plan, or are they approving 10 years of the 10-year plan?
Mhm.
And once that decision is made, and if they're approving the 10-year plan, then there's no reason to not put it in here. But I think if they only approve 1 year, I don't know if we want to
You'd
include
have to
10
call
years
it
of something that hasn't been
Right.
approved.
Right.
So,
You'd have to call it speculative. if you
yeah,
wanted
so
to
that,
do
I
it.
think that's the thing that would drive
Right.
that's the decision that would drive what goes in here.
So where I was going with this is, if you look down to the lower section that says debt service, expense projection, particularly, it's the same, here's where we start, here's where we, sorry.
These meetings do that to me too.
Here's what's added for the new bond issues, and here's the debt service cost retired by the 10 million that's going away. I'm still looking at the 2027 column. So there's your 25,678, which is your debt service requirement. And if you carry this out for 10 years, given the bond issues that are retiring, and the prospective waterfall requirements, which people might be relying on, saying, well, we're gonna get to this in 2030, it's in the waterfall, your debt service cost is gonna go up or down based on those in and outs. And the whole goal, so you get to the number that's 3983, it's just sort of in the middle of the bottom section there. The goal of this is to avoid a nasty surprise in the page we were just looking at that came from Craig, that
Right.
all of a sudden, because of the way the capital waterfall looks, you're gonna suddenly have debt service in a year that's 35 million instead of 25 million. And wouldn't it be good to know that?
But how does this impact the operational budget?
Well, because the debt service number is covered in the operational budget.
But
So
it
when
may
we
or may
do
not be covered.
when we do the capital plan, then we'll make assumptions about how much the budget's gonna grow. So we assume that's gonna grow like 4% a year. And then we say that we wanna keep the debt service 10% at 10% or less
Yeah.
than the total expenses. So that's kind of the way we manage that. And if you look at the capital plan, actually the ratio for any year is not high, is less than 9%. So that's how we get some comfort,
Yeah.
Yes.
That's all dependent on whether those
Yeah.
assumptions about the budget is.
And I know Liz Nesma has raised a couple times the question of, should we, instead of, are we leaving money on the table if we're at 8 or 9% on that chart, should we try to push it to 10 or 11, and then you get into your AAA rating questions, and, will that work against us? And
Well, yeah, but one of the reasons we also keep it below 10 is if you have an unexpected issue to deal with, then you've got room to
that's right,
cover that.
Right.
So it's
Sure.
sort of a contingency.
right. So, Tom, to Bob's question, so this 25,678 that I've got here, total debt service cost, that comes out of the debt service fund.
I'm sorry, which,
I'm looking at the first column, 2027, down at the very bottom where it says total debt service cost.
no, that's not there is basically the total expenses in the operating budget.
Okay, so
And
that's what I
then,
wanted.
yeah, it's all in the operating budget, but then we make assumptions about how much we want to use for debt service.
Right.
to
Cover.
fund
Cover.
operations.
Which
So
was
there's,
Craig's chart.
yeah, so there's some in the past, we had some transfers from debt service, we had some transfers from internal service fund.
Yeah.
The internal service fund is low, so we've taken it all out of the debt service fund this year.
So, to that point, then, again, this was just an attempt to look down the road to try and see what's coming, almost a strategic look, almost like a GE look. Let's see what's coming so that if it popped up, so we're going from 25 in 2027, we're going from 25,678,000 to 2029 is 30,983,000. The operating budget is gonna have to grow enough to absorb that additional 5 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that? And does the Board of Finance want to make some recommendations about this budget or the next one that addresses
Yeah.
that?
So the way this worked for the 10-year plan is the base year was, say, 2025, and we assume that grows 4%, or 3.8% a year.
Yep.
So on the basis of that assumption, there's enough net surplus to cover the debt expenses. So that's the assumption.
Right.
And that 3.8% would be a key part of doing the projection of the debt service for the next 10 years, you'd have to say, is it gonna stay at 3.8, or are we gonna invade Iran and it's gonna go up?
Yeah, the
to
thing
6?
that drives the debt service though more is the surplus. And the thing, surplus has been driven by, last year we had gains from investments, and we've had really good results in, permitting.
Yeah.
So that we had really, the surplus really came a lot from on the revenue side.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully that'll,
So again,
You guys
Speed
open
cameras.
positions up
yeah, we
there
make
every
the,
year,
right, some
that throws
expenses,
back
so.
money.
So that's what the
There's
surplus,
a
that's
lot,
what drives
you
and
know.
goes into the debt service.
so this, if you were to do this, I'm just putting it out there for your consideration, but if you were to do this page and put it in the budget, you'd at least show it'd be transparent, everything we've talked about.
And again, I think, and again, this would be a Board of Finance decision, but I think if they approve the capital plan, they may say, well, we approved the plan.
Right.
It should be in the budget for that.
Right.
You know, if they approve the 10-year plan, maybe they put in 10 years, but if they only approve 1 year of the 10-year plan, they may want to include only 1 year.
Have you gotten any thought yet on what they want to do? Because
Greg wants to talk about it. I'm gonna meet with Eli, we're gonna talk internally a little bit, I don't know.
because the, charter is vague, right?
Well, so that's the point. If we're going to, it says, present a 10-year plan, vote on
Vote on.
one, it sounds like you have to vote on at least 1 year, but it's unclear as to whether you have to vote on all 10 years, so.
That'll certainly cause people, if they are voting on it, to ask a lot more questions on timing and be a lot more concerned with the projects, because we're not, like, we hear about all of them and we spend a lot of time going through them,
But it'll be a lot
but
more.
we're not really fine tuning,
Right.
you know,
Right.
timing.
Right.
And that would cause, if you're literally taking a vote on it, I think that would be,
So.
I'd be interested to see where you guys land on that, because
Well, have
maybe a
preference.
3-year lookout would be more realistic, but like a 10-year lookout, I mean, you
But
could
that-
do it based on the knowledge that you know today.
Yeah, but I think if
Or
you're
told
doing-
you anything.
If you're doing that, you may need to do more work on just overall operating revenue expenses too, because that's, you know, it's a lot more work that we need to be done.
Well, so again, it's just, you know,
Yeah.
it's a way of looking forward, and,
I mean, it's not a bad thing, it's not a
the
bad
thing
thing.
you have, you can tell what's coming at you. Okay, page 7. This is really another speculative concept that I've used in other places, but you look across your budget book and you say, this basically is major risk assessment. So you look at the left-hand side, it's the department, there's the cost estimate, what's in the budget, and then a potential loss. So if you're reading columns, department cost element value, budget loss potential, and then comments. So the idea would be, maybe it's, and you and Tom, look at this and say, which items in the budget do we feel are most at risk of coming in differently than what we've got?
And/or major assumptions, because we're always making investment return assumptions. And obviously, the environment is changing currently. So it would be worth itemizing those.
Yeah.
And refining those as we go through the process and adding or subtracting to that.
So,
So we're all aware. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of, risk is baked in throughout on the expense and on the revenue.
So there's traffic camera.
Right.
That's-
Yeah.
It's gonna be a big one this year.
Grants, I mean, now, how do you must deal with this, Jen, on the Board of Ed side, especially with grants and outside funding?
In terms of unknowns?
Unknowns or no?
It's not until this year, at least at the federal level, those used to be fairly dependable.
Right.
This year, less so. And the state, we got a nice boost in one account, and then it got taken away in a different fund. So we ended up with a total extra that unaccounted for of about $1,800.
Wow.
So it's, I know we have a state delegation that fights for us hard, but it's
Yeah.
It's been going down, but very, very incrementally.
So as the budget book is prepared, I can almost see your area perhaps taking a stab at creating just a simple list that we can refine and refer to as we go through the process. So here are the major key drivers, so the assumptions, as you've looked across all the departments, whether it's on the expense or the revenue side. And I don't know if you want to evaluate the risk on a scale of 1 to 10 or whatever,
You
but
know, my thought was.
just calling them out, I think, is helpful.
Yeah, calling them out and maybe with a comment, and whether you say,
Mhm.
you know, it's 1% or 3% up or down, just having the comment and the number there. You know, against your 400 and X million dollar, $400.3 million
Mhm.
budget, if your top risk items add up to $10 million, you might say, well, you know, are we feeling okay? It becomes as much a discussion driver as anything.
So if you look at the revenue, we've got $400 million, you know, 10% of that is non-tax. Of that 10%, a chunk of that's grants, state grants.
State grants, yep.
And then and that's pretty kind of baked in. The rest of it is investment income. That's $10 million, you know, depending on rates in the balance of the investments.
Yeah.
So that's the big item. And then,
We got fees.
we got the fees. Charged for.
Which have been growing.
Permitting fees, which have been growing, but again, you know, we make assumptions that could be.
Yeah. And Anthony's areas, I mean, Parks and Rec.
That's some charge fees.
The golf course, I mean, it's a big revenue driver.
Well, so with a lot of these thoughts that I've put out here, they'll generate discussion
Right.
and get some ideas out on the table so that in a meeting, you don't have to.
Get us percolated.
Yeah.
So along those lines, you know, occasionally, as I watch Board of Ed budget discussions, and as we have our own, it invariably is raised, well, you know, there've got to be some shared opportunities where we could share, right? And across those domains. And they never seem to gain much traction, or at least as a new person, I haven't seen any in the last year or so. So I wonder, is there a history here where we've been productive and working in that kind of cross-departmental way to identify those common shared expenses that could be better leveraged by, rather than each, the town and the Board of Ed, you know, plowing their own streets, I don't know, I mean, doing their own thing in a silo,
So that was something, as you rightfully point out, it comes up all the time. I actually think there's a page in our budget book, and I have now been on the Board of Ed for 15 years, so I do conflate a budget book from 10 years ago with this year, so I might be wrong. I believe there's a page on there of shared services, so that we do have a tremendous number of those. It was something that Bill Gerber had raised as, you know, let's have a kind of renewed commitment, let's have a subcommittee that really take a look at this.
Right.
And that didn't exactly get off the ground too well. I think there was a lot that was going on, and so that became a lower priority.
I remember that, yep.
But did you find the page, so I'm not wrong?
No, but I'm sure it's.
Okay, I know it's near the beginning, I don't.
It would be in the
think it's
beginning?
fair. I'm gonna write a note to myself and get that to you, so. It's not this budget book, then it was a previous one, but I thought it was in this one.
It certainly comes up in discussion regularly.
It does.
Invariably.
And vetted back and forth.
Yep.
Overall, what we have found is that
Snow
certain things that
removal, so many different conversations, lawn mowing, it's just, you know.
Yeah, maintenance.
A lot of the things we have found wouldn't yield, I mean, for example, it was posed in the past, you know, HR, do some sharing there. Well,
And IT.
we've got, what?
Right,
You
IT,
know,
yeah.
close to 1,000 employees. We need our own HR director, just as the town needs its own. And also the nature of all of those, we've got 7 different bargaining units. So there's expertise in all of those different contracts. So that was one area. Technology has come up. Again, we have huge needs, very, very education focused, that wouldn't.
Very different.
Very different. And so it's the same topic,
Yeah.
but not workable. I mean,
Sure.
it's something that the Board of Ed is always open to the discussion,
Yeah.
100%. It just, no one's ever been able to find this is the one that is actually going
Even
to
when they
yield something.
talked about like the snow removal and things like
Mhm.
that and lawn mowing, the DPW doesn't have the manpower to do it all.
Right.
And that was a big part of it, is that they would have to hire more people and.
They would have
You
to
need
stop
to-
relying on streets to plow
Yeah,
school,
but
and
you-
that's not gonna
it
happen.
doesn't
Timing might
fit
be
together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that there are certainly a bunch of, I mean, it consistently comes up to your point, and it's, you know, vetted, but
Mhm.
there doesn't seem to be a lot of overlap that can utilize it.
And again, I would never close the door on it.
Sure,
But
yeah.
it would certainly involve some really knowledgeable people in the room, and there needs to be a commitment to it. And I couldn't say that what it would yield, but
Yeah.
Well, that's
there's
the right
nothing
question.
superficial that, and I think anyone could put their finger on at this point.
Well,
Does it
perhaps,
increase
Frank,
the risk, and for what value do you get from it, as you're saying?
Yeah,
Frank may have some insight too, having been on the town side now.
absolutely.
You know, so, because we have our own purchasing operations in both. I mean, it's just, there are many duplicative functions, but it doesn't mean they can be shared,
Right.
right? There are
Again, open to
challenges.
the discussion, I'm not trying to close the
Yeah, yeah,
door on it
yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Well, that may be outside of our scope, but I think we ought to at least be aware, and not fail to look at those as they come up in the budget process and put it more front of mind where it's appropriate.
The big thing about that is for it to come up, that's a perfect example, something that needs to come up in August. or
Well, sure,
September, you know,
sure.
and then oftentimes, when is it coming up? It's in January or February where someone's looking, can't we save some
Yeah.
money here? And now
Too late.
it's too late
Too
for the
late.
next budget cycle, that has to get started. If you're gonna talk about it in February, it's gonna be for the next.
So tell us
year's
about
budget.
your budget cycle. How are you
So-
start thinking about it in September?
So usually end of September, beginning of October, we'll have an agenda item where board members let the superintendent know, hey, I'm really looking for X. And then we're hands off, and they are, his departments, the superintendent's departments are all doing work probably from late September, right through the moment where they press the button and say print in January.
In January, then it
so-
goes to you.
So aside from that one budget item, that one agenda item, we don't know what's going on with the budget because they're working all that out behind the scenes. One thing that we do differently, and I don't know why we aren't in sync with the town on this, but we do our capital and non-recurring projects a meeting before, so we get that presentation in December, voted on it in January to send it to the Board of Selectmen. But that's a different timing than what happens with yours. It was interesting hearing you talk about the, capital non-recurring and how it gets buried in the book, and we do that as we used to do it with our budget book, and we thought that there's no reason for that. Let's pull it out, do it separately, a meeting earlier, so it's done with. Those are the things that generally go in for the bonding and what have you, but, so it comes to us the first meeting of January, we get the presentation, we then have 2 special meetings entirely devoted to budget, and then we have a regular meeting at the end of January, which is where we make our budget adjustment proposals, amendments, and finally, vote to approve.
Yeah.
So a lot of ours is happening, as is yours, behind the scenes.
Yeah, and you're suggesting we could start that sooner.
We will start.
You will start it sooner with department heads. So that kind of tees up your next couple of pages, I guess, Doug, in
So
terms of.
just a general question on this, so these are ideas that you came up with and had conversations, I guess, at the RTM?
Actually, the only thing the only one that I've shared with the RTM is the page 2, the multi-year.
That one.
Everything else is like, so for example, I sat through every single board select person meeting, where.
For the budget?
For the budget, 4 days of.
Next to me.
Yes, right.
Oh, you went in person?
I went in person, I
I
was there
listened.
for the whole thing. So it's, the RTM has a, budget process subcommittee. Liz Zezima is the leader. She has gone to some of the meetings, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of them.
Just about all of them.
I think every.
I think she was at all of them, yeah.
So we're gonna meet at some point and put our ideas together based on whatever she's come up with. But the rest of this was just suggestions for your, consideration based on prior, I could tell you the jobs I have had, but it might not be that meaningful. It's just, other than that one financial page, which I recirculated every time we got new numbers,
Yeah. For this, part of me, I think these are fantastic ideas. I mean, we're gonna give recommendations, but I think it's the first select person's desire or how they wanna present, basically.
Yeah,
Because they own the budget, it is their budget, it is, you know, we can certainly ask and make recommendations
Yep.
and say, we wanna see this, or anticipate our questions here, so you might as well do it in advance. But, ultimately, you know, Christine would have the final say in what she wants to have them ready
yeah.
for the
Yeah.
meetings. So I think that, you know,
And,
it's a
and,
good guideline,
and back to the discussion about, you know, Crystal and what's possible, so, you know, I put these ideas together without knowing how hard they'd be to implement, but to get the thinking going and, you know, you guys who know how to do it, I think it doesn't. Do you wanna talk about this last?
Yeah, let's go, we ought to look at and visit the process, the timeline, and the number of meetings, that are scheduled. All of that's in the charter, obviously, but you've got some thoughts here, so tell us about that.
You've been very generous with your time in letting me, put these things out there. So, this is a high-level flow chart of the budget process. You could do 3 or 4 other different levels going down if you wanted to do more Six Sigma work on it, but, this is basically the way that things happen. So across the top, the town departments compile their budgets working with you guys. First select person reviews them. School superintendent compiles the budget based on your recommendation, your request. You guys review it, and then Board of Select People that was the 4-day meetings I sat through, and then the Board of Finance. And what struck me was how much more, I mean, this was one person's impression, but the Board of Finance, you guys really dove into the details much more than the first selectmen meetings were.
Yes.
Now, of course, Christine knows all the detail, because she's got it all up here, plus she's worked with you guys.
she went through the department meeting.
Yes, and,
She
you know,
knows.
Sure,
so she
yeah.
knows all that stuff, and very capable.
And she's gone back and forth with the department, pushed back and
Yes,
said, no,
yes.
you're not, you know.
Yes, exactly.
Very involved.
But nevertheless, I sat through those 4 meetings, and I'm taking notes, and I even put a bunch of notes out on a Google Drive for the RTM. I don't think anybody looked at them. So I'm going on that as the basis for this. So then, yeah, the Board of Finance looks like you guys really dove into things and came up with, you know, 100 changes, which were some small, some large, which was terrific. And then by the time it got to the RTM, all we were doing was saying, well, do we want to, you know, reinstate the $10,000 for this fund, this, you know. So.
Well, we do have the luxury of holding 7 budget hearings, you know, Board of Select persons.
Part of our
They
job
hold
is
3,
to set the mill rate,
Yeah.
and I think we all take it
you know.
pretty seriously in the sense that we're completely tasked with, I mean, that is the purpose of our board
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
is to make sure that, you know,
Yeah.
we agree with how the money is being spent and we're protecting the taxpayers and
Yeah, and we will go into the weeds. No,
some of us
no,
more than others, but yeah.
No
Yeah,
question, no question. Yep.
Definitely.
So what are you thinking, how does this
So you go to
does
page-
this collapse? Does this, truncate the process? Does it shorten it? Does it
Well, this
add some
is one
efficiency?
idea.
Mhm.
This marries 2 things together. It marries, how do we make the process more efficient?
Mhm.
And in my projection here, it's like cut out the 4 days of Board of Selectmen
Hmm.
reviews. That's one efficiency gain.
So that's what this depicts.
Yes, and then the second thing that gets married up with that is what we were talking about the Google Docs questions and who's
Mhm.
looking at those questions. If you look at the box that says BOF and BOS, like right here in the middle of the page,
Mhm.
the notion
Review and
is,
modify.
if Christine were to sit in and you guys were to sit, and you do anyway, you sit in with the Board of Finance meetings,
Oh, I see, you're saying bring in the Board of Selectmen
yes,
Later.
instead of just Christine,
rather than,
Well, the charter would have to be changed.
Of course.
There's a lot of things.
Of course.
I mean, for one, we have Christine there who there's only 3 members on the board of selectmen,
Yeah.
so she's one of the
Right.
3. But,
And she's at
I
every
mean,
one of our meetings.
she's at all of our meetings. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you have her there, but I think that it is important that they go through it, and,
Yeah.
I think there are some things, I mean, where I think some of those things certainly could have been challenged up at that level.
Yes.
But I'm just gonna, I mean, even if they, somebody was to challenge them, I mean, you're sitting in a room where it's her budget, so obviously she's voting for the budget that she presented.
Mhm.
As a board of select person, yes,
Correct.
the 3 of them, yes.
I think it would fall on deaf ears, it'd be a waste of, you certainly could bring up lots of points and challenges, but I don't think you're gonna win the votes to change that.
But are you
Yeah.
thinking more of consolidating the presentations? So that the discussion of, okay, I'm gonna make stuff up, police
Yes.
is
yes.
now happening not before Board of Selectmen and before Board of Finance, but happening one time in front of both bodies.
Well stated, yes, exactly. And
So it might not change anything that you're talking about in terms of voting or how people
Yes,
are gonna
so-
go, but it,
so what I did, yes, to your
But the
point,
charter rewrite, that's something that, it would be a big charter rewrite.
well, but as a concept, if you give me just a minute, you know how the country, the US Constitution has, we vote for electors and they vote for the president, and you have to get 270 votes of the electoral college. And there's a movement out there to get past that, and all you need is enough states who have that number of electors to say, we're gonna apportion our electors based on, the voting.
Mhm.
So it works around the Constitution by just saying, this is where we're gonna handle it. So if you take that concept and put it against here, this box in the middle, so the Board of Selectmen would sit through the meetings as they do now with you guys, but they could have a separate caucus afterward or during, and when they say, here's what we believe, having listened to the same things that you guys have listened to, and foregone the 4 days up front, as Jen, as you pointed out, they have then, based on the same information, they've been in the same room, nothing's been left behind from the BOS presentations, it's now forgotten. I know it's just a concept, but it's a way of saying, you share information better, you have discussions that everybody is a part of, then without changing the charter, the Board of Select people meet and have their discussion, and maybe
Yeah.
that's a one
Yeah.
one meeting for 3 hours with the public invited, here's where it is, and you take it.
I think there was an attempt at this 2 charter revisions ago,
Oh, okay,
that wanted to significantly truncate and collapse all the meetings, because it kept coming up, department heads basically make the same presentation,
3
3
times.
different bodies.
yeah,
They do it 3
Right.
times, which is
Yeah.
so redundant and a waste of time, but I don't think that we here in this room are gonna change this.
Right.
yeah.
That is the purpose of
It's a
our
bigger-
committee, in the sense that,
Yeah.
I wouldn't personally go and say, hey, I think you should do this, I think they'd look at me like I have 15 hens.
And that's how you're looking at me now, right?
No, I'm not looking at you, I don't disagree, I think in
I'm
theory, it was certainly,
I'm just kidding.
when we live in a world, or certainly I live in a world of simplification, everything's how can we do things with less people, faster, AI, whatever, all the world we're living in, certainly going through the process 3 times is a lot.
Yeah.
However, I think that they would probably argue that there are very different things, and the boards are constructed in different ways to go at it in a different way. And if they were to do that, it would take powers much bigger than myself that would change that.
Yeah, so just, again, to get some thoughts out, and
Did Christine hear that idea? Because, she'd be much more in a position to
Sure.
change that than us.
And there's a box here that says Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen meet at the same time, so, you guys
yeah, I
would
was
have to
ignoring
feel-
that one.
But you feel the same though,
Yeah.
you're giving us the same feedback, kind of like, in concept,
I think
it sounds
Board
good.
of Finance and Board of Selectmen are much closer, that is the big picture,
Yeah.
Yeah.
slightly different angles, but big picture.
Yeah,
This would be a little more But on the other hand, the one thing I will tell you is that the Board of Ed says every year, and has said every year for 15 years, we wish to God people watched our budget meetings.
Sure, yeah.
We wish to God people looked at our Google Docs, and I hear you that doesn't happen. I think some groups got bigger when I met with, some RTM members of Pequot. I think some people were excited to get those Google Docs and did look at them. But I bet you the Board of Finance often feels the same way when they hear RTM questions. Like, if you'd listened to our meeting, you would have gotten that answer already. So the idea of being able to combine them and get everyone in the same room, I think, is enormously appealing.
Yeah. I often wondered if we couldn't publish a consumer's guide to the budget, a 5 or 6 page, a lot of pictures and with some numbers, that would be for the public, that kind of boils out and distills and presents using graphics and in an engaging way, all the levers, all the moving parts, in a big picture kind of way, so that they understand, because they're not going to wade through the budget book, and they're not going to wade through our meetings. I mean, my goodness.
Well, it's a million hours, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I did listen to all the Board of Selectmen meetings, and
Yeah.
it was extraordinarily helpful.
Yep.
I felt like I entered the room with much better questions. And again, even some of the things that were discussed at that level, I still asked or said at the Board of Selectmen meeting, they said X, Y, and Z, and I'd like to understand this better.
Yeah.
Like I did not listen to the Board of Ed, budget meetings. I really do take, I mean, you guys are fully dedicated to that. I look at I read all the articles, I read the high level, talk to my, you guys, I think.
Look, to the degree to which you would like to be able to trust the other town, like,
I rely on that body. I don't
about debt service.
I watch the.
I was in La Land, that is not my world, but, you put me with education, so I definitely hear that.
But, I do rely on that body to know, I mean, you've got a lot of different and tough personalities going over through that, crucially, so, but I think, go ahead, present it.
I think that one last thing, we have 10 meetings at the Board of Finance. We have 7 public hearings. We have the budget deliberation session. We have the general session at the high school, and then we have the budget vote. Those seem to work really well, especially the deliberative session we held in between that Saturday morning and the Tuesday vote. So I, for one, as a committee member, would suggest that we continue those
I
meetings.
don't think we should take away or add. I think the big thing that we're being asked for, I think that there's certain groups that we will want to bring in, and we'll look at that when we get to the budget, that we might want to hear from, instead of bringing people in last minute or trying to ask questions. Like, for example, registration of voters, register of voters, we didn't have that group come in, and then it's all of a sudden, budget and vote night, we're like fighting about the who said what situation. I think that a lot of that can be avoided by having them come and present, and I do think that spreading over the quarterlies, the charitable, contributions that we make, and having the different charities come in will certainly help, and not have that all, because there's so many, and it's quite frankly not a ton of money.
And the fact that they're adhering to a template that we've provided them, so if we could do the same on the town side for the department heads to tighten up their narratives, that would be terrific.
Using your word template at one point I heard there was like this 14-part
For investments.
Pardon me?
It's for investments.
Was that it? It's
for capital projects.
Because somebody was saying, well, do you have the template for the, that page of
14 points.
for the page of contributions to charitable organizations that you have in the budget. When you go through, you're doing some of those for each Board of Finance meeting. Do you have them all come in with the same 14, whatever they are? Board of Finance.
It started to, it's helpful.
It's funny, because at the meeting, one meeting, and that I missed. I mean, I was in Italy, so I wasn't back at the
Any other thoughts or ideas?
No, I mean, I think this next step, if I could summarize, take a minute. Bob, do you have to secretary put a minutes together?
I'll throw something, I'll pass it over to you.
And if you need help or what you want to
Sure,
do
we can go back
on
and forth.
whatever, I'm always happy to get together. So I think that there were some low-hanging fruit discussions, like page numbers. I mean, first of all, we have your full document that you already put together.
Yeah.
That we can share with a wider audience. And then some of the different things we talked about. I will tomorrow send an email letting the rest of the Board of Finance, know that we had a meeting. I will share with them, some of the comments that we've already discussed, but really ask them for their feedback and let them know that we're meeting on July 8th and ask them to provide that in advance.
Do you want to also provide them with, I don't know if the whole board got
Yeah, I
your-
said I was gonna share this.
Okay, yeah.
For sure, so I'm gonna attach this, and I can also share, and talk about this for a minute too with the rest of the board, if you're okay with that. and
Oh,
attaching it.
absolutely, you know, listen, thank you so much for devoting an hour and a half of your, evening to talk you through this. There are ideas that I was hoping would generate some discussion, and
Yeah, no, I
I'm
think.
really glad you talked about it, so thank you.
May I ask one question?
Yes, of course.
Obviously, thank you for capturing our 61% of the budget. I'd love if there were any discussion, if there's anything we can do differently, whether it's anything in advance, whether it's the form of our presentation, whether it's the form of our budget book. It just, if anything occurs, I don't know if I need to be there, or if you could say, hey, it came up, and we'd let you know, but, obviously, I think it's very important that we work well with the town and make sure that everyone gets the information they need, and if there's anything we can do better, I'm keenly interested in knowing that.
I think that between Bob and I, we'll certainly keep you posted, both of
Okay.
you.
Sure,
And, I do think you guys do a pretty robust job.
yeah. Especially on the
Everything.
quarterlies, you've made
And
some
you are,
improvements to the quarterlies,
And the
very
quarterly
helpful.
is
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
But I will certainly, if somebody says the Board of Ed, they want to see X, Y, and Z, I think it's important that we
Yes,
communicate
please let
that
me
to
know.
you guys.
Okay.
If I could just add one thing, so one of a great page in your budget book is, what, Mike Casani calls his placemat, which has some high-level numbers. I was reading that and I'm thinking, I wish I saw a couple of years of activity under each of those items that he had on his placemat to give more of a perspective, just for whatever that's, again, backly showing trends, showing where things are going. But that was, that's the kind of thing, to your point about a 5-page summary for the town,
Right.
his placemat's not a bad form to think about for other.
Now I gotta go see what he refers to as a placemat.
Yeah,
It intrigues me.
You didn't laminate it, did you
Italian to, come up with something food related.
Well, yeah, it's not like you come into a restaurant and here's the maze for your kids and here are the crayons. That's my first
Thank you.
placemat.
All right, anything else before we adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second.
Thanks again for.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you for having me.
Meeting adjourned at
Jen, I don't
8:40.
know if I have, I probably do have yours.
Thank you for those
I certainly have
listening
your
in.
email.